Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Bleav in Bengals, presented by FanDuel. That's right. FanDuel is our new sponsor. And of course, they will be carrying the Bleav in Bengals podcast on Channel 43 throughout the season. Today, we have a very special guest. That's right. Cincinnati Bengals and Hall of Fame offensive tackle Anthony Munoz joining us on the show. So we are very pleased to have him here. Anthony, how you doing today?
Solomon, I am doing great, man. Thanks for having me. How are you doing? It's always great seeing your face.
Always great to see you as well. It's always great to connect with you. And look, I know you're looking forward to calling the Cincinnati Bengals preseason games. It's just around the corner, right? As we're getting ready for that first preseason game. We got to get you started by at least getting your thoughts on Trey Hendrickson because he's really a fan favorite. This guy's been so productive. He's so good. I could not imagine the Bengals going into the 2025 season without him. So do you sign him or do you trade him? How do we get this thing fixed?
Well, I think there's only one way to do it, Solly. I think you have to sign him. I'll tell you what, we, you have a proven chaos disturber in the backfield with all his sacks. We don't have one of those guys right now. At least none of the guys have proven to do that. So we need to sign Trey, get him in there, get him ready to go up by the lake on the first game. And I was going to say get after the quarterback. I don't know who they're going to have a quarterback. They got 5 or 6 up in Cleveland, but I think you need to sign. I think you need to sign Trey.
Yeah, look, the other teams in our very own division have their ace pass rusher, whether it's Myles Garrett, whether it's TJ Watt. We have one in Cincinnati. It turns out to be Trey Hendrickson, not only a great locker room guy, so he's got, I think, an added value in the locker room as well as on the field. How important is that? Because we have a guy on the other side in Shemar Stewart who needs someone like Trey. You and I both know that can be tremendous to helping him get off to a good start to his career.
It really is, so, and I think, a lot of people just think maybe on the field, but it's off the field in the locker room where a guy like Trey can be very helpful to not only a young guy like Stewart, but the whole defense. And so you're gaining more than just a great pass rusher. You're gaining someone that can have an impact in the locker room.
I hate to go with back in the day, but when we played, we knew we were going to play in the preseason. Now, it wasn't even a question. If I looked out there and saw number 78 out there, I never even had a question whether or not I would be playing. But today, our game is different. We don't have 2-a-day practices. But that means I think that puts more of an emphasis on the preseason games, even for someone like Joe Burrow, that once he gets going in the regular season, you see his game go to the next level. So how important is it that maybe even he should play during the preseason?
Well, so I think, you mentioned Joe, I think is very important, but, one area where I Bleav is very, very important is that offensive line because you see so many different things. You can only handle so many things in practice. You can look at them, but it's not the same speed. It's not the same impact that you have during a game. So I think communication, coordination between Joe and that offensive line is very important. And, I think that's key. And we've seen that over the last several years, how it takes 1, 2, sometimes 3 games to get rolling. And the way I look at it in the past, the first 2 games have pretty much been preseason games because the guys have not played in the preseason. Not that you have to go out there and play a half or 3 quarters, but I think you have to see some live action. And, I mean, if Philadelphia plays their first guys on defense, what a great way to start the preseason with some amazing experience against that front that the Eagles have. So, again, not that you have to go out in camp and pound and kill yourself, but I think there's something to going out there and playing some preseason. You're right. We used to see sometimes 2 quarters, and then as we got closer to the season, you played the first half, you came out the second half to get that feeling of what it is. Even though you've done it, 5, 6, 7 times, your body takes a little rest at half, then you come back, get loose in that. And if it's just, several plays in the second half, but it's not that way. It is a different game, but I still Bleav that you have to get some reps in the preseason.
Cincinnati Bengals head coach Zach Taylor determined to see this year's team get off to a much faster start. Over the last 5 years, during the first 2 games of the season, Cincinnati Bengals are 1-9 in their first 2 games over the last 5 seasons. it's critical to get off to a fast start, particularly when you consider the Bengals has missed the playoffs over the last 2 years. What are some of the other things Zach Taylor is doing? Not to mention he's going to give them more action during the preseason. What are some of the other things you've seen him do to try to help with that?
I think first year statistic, the last several years. Take last year, for instance, they win one of those 4 games. I don't think anybody wants to play them in the playoffs the way they were rolling. I mean, the last several games, the last really half of the season, wow. I mean, offensively, they were rolling. So, those first couple of weeks are very important. And hopefully Zach sees the importance of that. I know there's a lot of teams that don't play their guys, but I just like the way that he's really lifting guys up to be leaders. And, you hear about, this guy, time to be a leader, that guy. And I think it's one thing for the individual to realize that. I think when you talk about leadership, I'm a firm believer that you're not self-designated as leaders. The guys around you, it's the coaches. And when you see the coaches and your players looking to you as a leader, I think that's a key, because you need, at least a couple guys on each side to be leaders. And I really believe Zach is making that effort to really put that into play.
Yeah, when the coaches say, hey, guys, we're thinking about doing this. What do you guys think? All the players turn to one or two guys and say, let them speak for everyone. You kind of know it in those moments. Look, covering this league for a long time, I remember going to Indianapolis and talking to Peyton Manning in preseason, and he wanted to play. Tom Brady wanted to play. You look down at Kansas City, Pat Mahomes, Andy Reid doesn't want him to play, but Pat says, no, I want to play. Joe Burrow looks like he's going to play in these games. And when he gets going, I just remember it's usually about week 4, week 5. You could kind of see, when it's clicking for him.
Oh my goodness.
Man, he is one of the absolute best. I wouldn't want any other quarterback. How important you think for him it is to maybe get going with the number 1 offensive line playing in these preseason games?
Well, first of all, you mentioned, I've already said it. If I'm starting a franchise, I know you got, you got Josh Allen, you have Mahomes, you got Jalen Hurts. I'm taking number 9, not just because he's a Cincinnati Bengals player and I played for the Bengals. I'm taking him because to me, he's the best quarterback in the league. And you're going to start your franchise with that. So I think it's very important, again, to see him with that first unit. Again, you don't have to play a whole half. Just, if it's 8 plays and a touchdown, at least they have that, which probably won't be 8 plays, might be 3 or 4 plays and a touchdown.
But
I think it's very important. Again, I mentioned earlier the communication, just being on the same page with guys. And, there's a lot said, not only the verbal communication, but when you go up to the line of scrimmage and not only your quarterback, one of the best, notices something on defense that causes him to change the play or do something, I think it's crucial for the offensive line to be on that same page. And they should see the same thing that your quarterback sees. I think, again, I don't want to say, well, back in the day, but that's one of the things where we held each other accountable is when Boomer was a quarterback and we were going to make changes as an offensive line, we saw that happening, and then it was just reinforced by your leader, and that's your quarterback. So I think it's very important for that offense to see some action as a unit.
I want to start by at least getting your thoughts on the Bengals' new offensive line coach, Scott Peters. I've had a chance to work with him in close proximity. I love what he brings to the table. I think he brings some nuance and new techniques, right? He's a young guy, I think, who relates to the players really well. What are some of the things top down that you've seen with Scott Peters that you think will make a difference with this offensive line?
Well, so first of all, I was at the opening practice the very first practice. I'm sitting there watching him go, take the offensive lineman through their drill, and Dave Lapham standing next to me. And I turned to Lap and I said, a lot of that stuff looks familiar, doesn't it? And of course, he was tutelage, his tutelage under Jim McNally. McNally had an impact, not only coaching him when he was playing, but some of the clinics. But Scott has taken that and he's added some of his own things. And I think what he's added is amazing. Being a Jiu-Jitsu, battle, an MMA guy that you get a lot from different martial arts and leverage stuff. But, the amazing thing is I've known Scott way before he got the job here, and way before he actually got hired in the NFL. Back in the day, Scott Peters, Olin Kreutz, who played for the Bears, and myself, worked the Cleveland Browns OTA. So I got to know Scott up there. I saw what he was teaching, but I love what he's teaching. And I think not only does he bring that technique in with tweaks and new stuff, but he brings an attitude in. And I love his attitude. You know, I didn't know him when he was playing, but I heard he was disciplined, tough guy. And he brings that same attitude as a coach. So I'm excited about what the guys are learning and what they're being taught. And this was my third day today watching them. Today they were in pads, so there was a little more physicality in what they were doing. But I like Scott and I like what he's doing.
I think so little has been discussed about the Cincinnati Bengals interior offensive line. Cordell Volson needs to take that next step. We have Dylan Fairchild coming in as a rookie, and Lucas Patrick coming over from the Green Bay Packers. What do you think about those guys, and how quickly can they gel with the other guys on the offensive line to make the kind of cohesive unit that you're going to need?
Well, I think there's an improvement there. And as far as how long is it going to take for them to gel, Solly, we know it's got to happen in a hurry because, you know, they're going to go into that opening game against Cleveland. But, you know, everything I've seen and heard about Dylan Fairchild, his strength, you know, he's still a rookie. I mean, he's a rookie. He played in a great program. Anytime an offensive lineman is drafted, not only from the SEC, but from Georgia, you know he's going to be physically tough. He's going to be strong, and hopefully he makes that adjustment right away. And then Patrick Lucas, as you mentioned, you still have Cody Ford in the mix there, and Cordell Volson, who started a little bit. So what happens when you have guys that have played with new guys? You have competition, and that's the best thing to have, regardless of what position. It's good to have competition. But I'm excited about what they've added there, and like I said, I think it's going to be an upgrade, and we'll learn quickly, you know, if it's going to be an upgrade once things get live. But you know, with Kara still in the middle there, he's a great leader, great veteran player. I think I'm really curious to see what happens with this offensive line. If it gels and it becomes a really good offensive line, let's average 50 points a game. Who cares about how much the defense plays, right, Solly? But I think this offense is has a potential to once again put a lot of points on the board. You know, with some pretty good running backs, and we'll see. But again, I think it's that middle with the guards that has to really step up and take the challenge and prove that they've done a good job by bringing a free agent over and Lucas and bringing you know, pretty good draft pick and Dylan Fairchild in.
Yeah, when you think about it, I mean, we struggled last year on the interior portion of the offensive line, but yet still the Bengals had 8 games where they scored over 30 points and was lighting it up. And there's still room for improvement. Want to get your thoughts on Amarius Mims. You're number 2. Here's a guy that's got a load of talent, has to be able to stay on the field. If he stays on the field and can get the reps, time on task, right, Anthony? How is he progressing so far?
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I was at camp today, and I was sitting there talking with Orlando Brown and Mims, and Horde came over and took a picture, and both guys went back to practice. And I said, when I grow up, I want to be like those two guys.
They're huge.
Oh, my goodness. Solly, I felt like not rare. I mean, it's rare when I feel like a little kid to a couple grown men, but you know, Mims was on track. You know, watching him last year, he was doing a phenomenal job. Then he was slowed down by the injury, and then came back, and you know, still a rookie. I mean, we're all rookies, and we learn through our rookie years. But if he can progress the way he was progressing last year, I mean, Solly, you look at the guy, and I don't know his exact weight, but I'd have to say he's like 340 or something, 350. Yeah. But he's just solid. I mean, he looks like a big, you know, wide receiver type, and he's not, smooth, very athletic. So I'm excited not only about him, but the tackles. I think for him and Orlando Brown to really take that game to the next level. And we talk about the interior. If that can happen, if Mims can really progress the way he was last year, and I guess he's got, you know, I know he's got that rookie under his belt. He's learned a lot. But, you know, hopefully this is a breakout year for him. And he has all the physical tools, man. I'll tell you what, when, you know, we were talking about at practice, I said, when they got in that laboratory and they're mixing this, mixing that, and all of a sudden, okay, we want a prototypical NFL lineman of today's, boom, there it is. Mims popped out of the, you know. But the guy's very impressive. And, you know, he seems like he came over and he seems very humble. But
Yes.
when he gets in there, from everything I hear, he just wants to absorb everything. He wants to
Mhm.
learn, and he really wants to get better every day.
Yeah, I think he has a chance to be a great player, and
Yeah,
I think he and Orlando Brown Jr. have a chance to become one of the best tandem of tackles
yeah,
in the National Football League. There's some progression that needs to take place, but the talent
right.
is
Yep.
certainly there. Want to get your thoughts on what maybe you've seen from Shemar Stewart. I got to tell you, when I put the tape
Yeah,
on, I wasn't bothered by the fact that he only had 4.5
yeah,
sacks. The
yeah,
guy can wreck shop. He
uh,
has
yeah,
technique. He has talent. He could be disruptive. The
yeah,
sacks will come if you're disruptive,
yeah.
and he seems to have all the tools that are necessary.
Yeah, so I haven't seen a whole lot of them. I've
Yeah.
I've heard and
Okay.
I've read, and
Yeah.
okay, of course you look at them and you think, okay,
Okay. Yeah.
let's I'm checking the rookies out, and I see
Mhm.
Stewart, and I see Knight, and I'm thinking,
Yeah.
holy Knight, man, this guy's Barnett, the two backers they drafted, but
Mhm.
Stewart, I think if he can produce and up to the way he looks and what I
Yeah.
hear, so. Again,
Yep.
I've not seen a whole lot. The first couple practices, there were shorts, and he
Mhm.
wasn't there, and then
Yeah.
pads. But it's more just the bags and that type of stuff.
Mhm.
But I'm excited. I'm looking forward to, when a lot of people say, "Man, your body of work, your production wasn't that what it should have been in college." And
Yeah.
I know deep down inside, man, that fire's burning, and they're like, "Okay,
Yes.
I'm going to show him
Yeah.
that." And hopefully, hopefully he can get rolling as a rookie, and Miles can get going on the other side, and then with Trey. That's a pretty good trio if we can get those guys rolling at the same time.
I found a really good comp for Shemar Stewart. His 3 years at Texas Tech, everybody knows he had 4.5
Yeah,
sacks. That number
yeah,
is kind of alarming. But then
yeah.
Danielle Hunter, how about Danielle Hunter at LSU for 3 seasons? He
Hmm.
comes out with 4.5 sacks. As he's going into his 10th NFL season right now, he has
Yeah,
99 career
yeah,
sacks. So
yeah,
I just think that you and I both know some players, they tend to blossom at certain times,
yeah,
but it's about having the talent, the tools, the fundamentals, and
yeah,
technique that allow you to be productive. So to be able to find one other player out there that had similar
yeah,
production, but still know that it didn't hinder him from
yeah.
producing at the next level, I thought that was a really good sign. What
Well,
can you say about Al Golden and what you think he will bring to this
yeah.
defense, Anthony?
Well, first of all, on the production in college, and
Mhm.
unless you watch every game and
Yeah,
you have a specimen like that, okay, are they sliding the line to him? Are they double
good
teaming
point.
him more than the other
Yeah.
side? What is causing his production not to be like, whoa, 20 sacks
Mhm.
in 4 years?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
hopefully, individual you mentioned that can happen to Stewart, and I'd love to see that. Al
Yeah.
Golden, Al Golden was here before. He's
Yep.
back, did an amazing job at Notre Dame with their defense. From what I hear, a little more structured, a little more disciplined. And I
Yep.
think when you have a lot of young guys, Sally, you were a young
Yeah.
guy at one time on a pretty good defense. You
Yeah.
need that structure. You need that
Yeah.
discipline.
Mhm.
And from what I hear, that's what Al Golden brings. So I'm really looking forward to it with the young linebackers. You have Logan Wilson still there as a vet, but you have
Yeah.
Barnett and, of course, Knight, the young guys. So we'll see. If defensive backs are getting some experience, they've been around now.
Yeah.
I think they have an opportunity to be I don't know if they'll be a SWAT team, but you know,
We can
maybe
only
we.
hope. We can
That's
only
right.
hope.
That's
Uh,
right. We always
yeah.
hope for those guys to be a lot better than when we played. So maybe
That's right.
they
That's
can
right.
be SWAT 2-0, and but they got some really good guys in that secondary. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens. But I'm excited about seeing what Al Golden can do with this defense.
Yeah, I'm hoping that the secondary can gel, having great
Yeah,
communication. They've
yeah,
got really good talent. I'm excited
yes,
about Jordan Battle. I'm excited about
yeah,
Josh Newton. I'm
yeah,
excited to see Cam Taylor Britt bounce
yeah,
back. This guy's got a nose for the football. Dax Hill and DJ Turner.
yeah,
These guys are all really highly drafted players,
yep,
and it's now about coming into their own, right? Having the
right, yeah,
experience and the confidence
yeah,
that you need to go out and play and have fun. And I think that's where Al Golden can make a difference. I had a chance to go out to South Bend, Indiana, to watch
uh-huh,
that team last year. I was really excited early on by watching the secondary, and then that defense just got better and better each and every year. Dick LeBeau would say, when you're playing well in the secondary, That means you're not letting people throw the ball over your head, and you're tackling very well. That usually helps you to keep the score down. One last question before we go. When it comes to this football team this year, what do you think are going to be the most important things that have to happen if this is going to be a special season for the Cincinnati Bengals?
Well, we've already talked about one of them, and that's a quick start. Coming out and not, going 0-2, 0-3, but jumping out and winning games early on. I think that's going to be a key. To me, stopping the run. I think stopping the run is going to be big for this defense. So I think those two right there are the two things that I'm going to be watching. So hopefully, I have really high expectations for this offense. And, we know we have talent on the perimeter. I mean, we got, to me, one, if not the best quarterback, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say we got the best wide receiver in number one.
Yes,
but he's got a great supporting cast with Higgins and, those type. But I think running the football, too, is going to be huge with Chase Brown and, Brooks. So, but I think 1 and 2 for me is starting quick and also stopping the run.
Yeah, look, if we can run, but I thought Chase Brown was explosive last year.
Yeah.
And you're right, Anthony. The second half of the season, as we got into December, those final 5 games, as the Bengals won all 5, I mean, they were unstoppable, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. No one wanted to see them. I remember Kansas City, they're playing Denver in the final regular season game. They didn't play any of their starters. They gave the playoff to the Denver Broncos.
That's right.
I think they wanted them in. They didn't want to see the Bengals in, did they? They didn't want.
I agree. I agree. I mean, they might have denied it, but I would say deep down inside, they're like, no. We don't want to see Joe Burrow again. We don't want to see this Bengals team because they had it go. You're right. They were rolling, man. And I was just hoping they got into the playoffs because I think they would have went deep into the playoffs.
Yeah, look, number 9, you mentioned it. He's the best quarterback in the league. When he gets it going, he's courageous. He's tough. He can make all the throws, and his processing. Remember, Vince Lombardi said 90% of the game is played from the neck up. This guy, when he sees it, he is flat out clicking.
Amazing.
He's dealing, and you and I both know that that's really very important at that position.
Oh man, I tell you, that's amazing when you have a guy that not only has a physical ability, but you try and do this and try and do that, and he's like a step ahead of you. I mean, he's kind of like they're going to do this, so I'm going to be ahead of them. I'm going to prevent them from getting through or doing this, and that's what's so much fun to watch him. And I love his whole temperament, the way he handles things, and he'll come out in the huddle, and you would never know that he threw a pick 6 if it ever happens because he'll get right back in there, drive him 80 yards, and he'll score a touchdown. I mean, he rebounds amazingly if something doesn't happen good on offense. So I am glad that we have number 9 running the show, and I'm excited, Sully. I'm really, I'm pretty optimistic about this football team, and I'm excited to see what happens.
Well, we're looking forward to hearing you on the call for that first preseason game in Philadelphia. Another thing that we love about Joe Burrow, he is a son of a coach, a defensive coach, by the way. Jimmy is a great defensive mind. I get to see him every year at your golf tournament. All of Joe's big brothers all played on the defense, and Joe's one of his favorite sports is MMA fighting. How about that? You don't hear that about a lot of quarterbacks, Anthony.
No, you don't. I know as a former offensive lineman, I'm a big MMA guy. I watch just about every weekend, but quarterbacks, you wouldn't think that they're all about that octagon, but he is.
That tells you something about it. That tells you a little something. Anthony, we'll let you go. We want to thank you for joining us here on the Bleav in Bengal podcast. Of course, everyone, you can catch it because we're presented right here by FanDuel. So we'll be back next week. We want to thank the great Anthony Munoz for joining us. We'll see you next week, everyone.
Solid. Thank you, buddy.